Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested.
And Frank from Tested.
And we are here in Frank's workshop for another special project. To kick it off, you've been wanting to do this one for a while. And I think it's a really cool idea.
Well, I've seen the photos on the internet, and I'm pretty sure it's a photoshopped picture, but I've seen the Han Solo and Carbonite on a refrigerator.
Oh, brilliant. But how do you start that?
Well,
you have a Han Solo kit.
You have to find the parts, and that's not that hard to find. You go on the RPF or you go on eBay, and you can find castings. This one just happens to be split up in 3 pieces, but I'm gonna mold it and put them all together so I can split it for this.
What surprises me is that when you think of Han Solo and Carbonite, Adam has one, and you think of this really, it looks like a complex sculpture.
Yeah.
Right, because there's detail on the side, there's a lot of relief work, but really when you buy the kit, you got it, and it's basically, it looks like 6 pieces, 3 pieces for the main body part, a side panel, and 2 feet.
So this side panel, there's a few on each side. So I'm gonna make a mold of this, make copies. This is off of like an old Volvo. They're called Volvo Panels.
Oh, interesting. I know that.
It's from the dashboard. And then, there's lights and there's things that need to go in here, so I still have to track those down. But I'm gonna mold all the stuff, cast it up, and put it on the refrigerator.
So if someone was going to build your standard Han Solo and Carbonite and they got this kit, would they just build a wooden frame box?
Yeah, most people build a box like I think out of MDF or whatever. The side panels have to have like routed insets for the Volvo panels. And then you put this stuff on there, and most people just Bondo it to give the background smear.
Right.
I'm going to use that freeform habitat like we used on the Dragon, because it's like really good and adhesive, and it's a little bit more durable than Bondo. So I'm going to do the smear with a different material.
Now, if you put Han's face on that, it looks a little awkward because that fridge is not as high as you'd think the Carbonite is.
Yeah, Harrison Ford's 6'1", and the Carbonite box is pretty big. So I'm going to have to cheat a little bit of this, but I'm also going to build a riser for the fridge. When I build the riser, I'm going to put those orange slats like in the Carbonite chamber.
Awesome. So it sounds like the first step is you're going to remold and cast these up.
Yep.
Make these parts perfect for the fridge.
I want the parts a little more durable too, because these are just urethane.
Perfect. The Frigidaire fridge.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to change the label.
Yeah. I'm going to pull all this stuff, pull the handles off, and then I'll try and make this butt as tight as possible so you don't see that big gap.
Oh, that's awesome. We're going to follow along with the project.
Yep.
Can't we see what's next?
Yeah, it'll be fun.
There it is, Frank. Your Han and Carbonite
Finished
fridge.
it.
Holy crap. Looks incredible. So let's go through the process of how you got these cast pieces on there. And all goes to what you cast it out of.
Yeah. Well, we made a quick mold of all the parts that I got, and then we cast it in a clear epoxy, because originally I was just going to do it regular Carbonite, and then I was like, nah, this thing needs to glow. So I tinted this Epoxicast 690 a little bit pink, so that when it glows, it's got this real nice bright red. And then we filled it in layers in the mold and then embedded LEDs in the end.
So there's a lot of experimentation with this project. You had this vision in your head going in. You had these pieces, because there's a lot of parts online for building your own Han and Carbonite. You wanted to not only do it in the fridge, which meant one, structurally, you needed to find a place to cut it off. A fridge normally isn't this tall.
Well, the whole thing was a learning process. Learning like all the little intricacies of the Volvo panels and the height of the thing, like the dimensions of it. The Carbonite chamber is 6'7". Harrison Ford is 6 foot. So I had to put a 12-inch riser on the refrigerator. So now the freezer's a little high, but it's the right height, and so it matches proportionally a little bit better. And then because we're building this on a refrigerator, I took a little bit of liberties with the side panels. Like these routed side panels are supposed to be thicker in the real one.
And then the material you cast in itself. So your mold is
silicone.
Silicone mold.
Yeah.
And then you did some test castings of different materials.
Yeah.
Just for the translucency, right?
Well, the translucency is this, like kind of light pinkish color.
Right.
And then like the first casting I did, I just dumped the resin in, and with most of these clear epoxy resins or even polyesters, they don't like to be cast in thick sections. And I learned that when I did this first one. It's got all these little lines on it. Looks like it's made out of lava or something. So I had to fill it in like increments. So it took about 2 days worth of doing increments because
just to fill up the mold.
Because this epoxy has like a 5-hour working time. Wow. It's like ridiculous. So I had to just take my time and do it, and did it all in layers. And then I got a cleaner casting. And then this one I did the paint test with. Now, the first time I did it, I just hit it with some primer just to kind of see what it looked like. But primer is made to be opaque. So I needed to find a paint that would be translucent and let the light shine through. So what I did is I ended up just using All-Clad. All-Clad's meant to be put over a colored surface to begin with. So it's got a nice little bit of translucency. So when you put light in behind this,
but it still reads as silver.
Yeah, it reads as the Carbonite, you know, and that's what we want it to do.
And then in mounting it to the fridge itself.
Yeah, you would think you would want to use like 5-minute epoxy or something like that. But I want a little bit more working time, and I want something a little bit thicker so that I can kind of trowel it on and push it in and have time to position it and everything. So what I did is I took Freeform Habitat, which is the same stuff I made that big giant dragon out of.
Yeah.
And I didn't add any of the filler, so it's kind of like a paste. And then I thinned it down a little bit more with some epoxy laminating resin. So I have this like kind of honey kind of consistency.
You made your own glue.
I made my own glue, smeared it on the back of the thing and pressed it on, put it in the right spot. And then I used another Freeform Habitat. They have one that's like flexible. It's got a little bit of a give to it. And I used that to do all the smear around it.
And then the Volvo panels,
the
panels on the side.
Yep.
You wanted to build your electronics. You said you wired LEDs through the both top and bottom, and then they're actually activated from the side.
Yeah, the electronics that I got for this, they're meant to be in a hollow box, so they're not meant to fit in the constraints of this thin little Volvo panel. So I got to rework some of the wiring on this one to get it to sit perfectly flat. But all the controls on here, they have all the different settings for like when he's first encased in Carbonite, and Lando looks at the side of the panel, and then the pattern for when it's like going through Cloud City on the way to Slave One, and then there's another pattern for when Leia turns it to defrost, and when it turns to defrost, I have it. That's when it lights up.
Nice.
These little controls on the side, and then so I called up my buddy John McPhailin, who's a programmer. He made a quick little board for me to do that, to make it pulse. And the electronics on this run at 5 volts. Those LEDs run at 12. So he built the board so that it runs at 12, feeds this at 5.
Wow.
Everything's all like self-contained.
Talk about a constraint, because it's not only the size of the fridge, but you can't go inside it because it needs to still work as a fridge.
Well, I learned a really rough lesson on that. I had originally bought this fridge. It was a black refrigerator, and I went to screw in these side panels, all these routed MDF panels. I couldn't have hit it if I was aiming for it, but there's one little brass tube in there that carries Freon, and I hit it, and I punctured it, and I bricked a fridge. So I had to go buy another refrigerator and just replace it.
A little bit of an expensive learning experience.
It is, but this whole thing is a learning experience, and that's what like building these cool props are all about. And I learn about the history of all these parts. I learn about where these things come from. You read all these like really deep threads. People figure out the colors and what the little parts are made out of, and where they come from. And it's kind of fun. It's like, digging through history and trying to, think of how people made it when they did it. It's
a replica with the authenticity of all that research, and you have a thread in the RPF, the replica prop forum, about your build. So you're going to be at least accurate to those pieces, but you also made it your own because it's a working fridge.
It's a refrigerator.
It's a refrigerator. You have a clever name for it?
I don't know. We haven't thought of one yet.
Oh, okay, well, people out there,
put it in the comments.
Come up with a color name for the Han and Carbonite refrigerator, because that's too clunky. But thank you so much, Frank, for sharing with us this project. And also, of course, check the links below, because you'll have more detailed pictures and the build process. Yeah, the whole build will be on the RPF. And thanks to all the people on the RPF that have, jammed out a bunch of parts for me. I know like a couple of these guys did some runs really quick for me, and it's a good community. It's like really fun. Awesome. Thanks, Frank. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back next time with another cool project from Frank's workshop. Until then, see you next time.